Minnesota Fighting Vikings are 3-3 at the bye week, and they're one of the most consistently inconsistent teams in National Football League history, even though that roster, on paper, on purpose, looks pretty damn stacked. And a guy who's in charge of making that roster on paper stacked is General Manager Rick Spielman, who met with the media jackals this week, his annual bye week press conference. And Spielman is very adept at talking a lot but actually saying nothing. It's actually a great magic trick. He should really go into politics. I'd vote for Rick. But there were some questions. There were some things said. We have reactions to him. Go. On the trade deadline, Will Rag at Sports Illustrated. Go. Rick Spielman on whether the 3-3 Vikings could be buyers at the trade deadline. We'll monitor everything as we always do. Says it's not a fantasy football thing because of cap ramifications, acclimating players to a new system, locker room, etc. The trade deadline is 2 weeks from now, Tuesday, November 2nd, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Even though it would be fun to trade for Xavier Howard, you got to work that into the salary cap, even though cap is myth. They could make it work, but Xavier Howard mid-season, different scheme, different system, even though the Dolphins certainly should be sellers at this point. And it would be a lot of fun. I wouldn't be shocked if the Vikings stand completely pat. Maybe they bring in a couple of street free agents onto the practice squad, but that's really about it. More on trades. Well, Raggets, go. Spielman says he likes the Vikings' depth, and teams have inquired about some of their backup players, but that you don't want to deplete too much of that depth in trades. And, of course, he's talking about Sean Mannion. You know that quarterback-needy teams are just like, Sean Mannion, I got to get us some of that. But you look around where the Vikings have some serious depth. You got Sheldon Richardson, who is your backup once Michael Pierce is back. DJ Wanham, who's been edged out now that Everson is really taking over. Weatherly, Vigil, Blake Lynch, etc. So the Vikings do have some really nice, promising depth players, but you don't want to part with them because you never know when injuries, when COVID, again, knocking on all the wood, are going to impact your ability to field your starters. So, yeah, I like the depth that the Vikings have. Other teams may want it. Too bad. It's ours. On Kirk Cousins' monies, Ben Gessling, Star Tribune, go. Spielman on Kirk Cousins' contract, $45 million cap hit in 2022. We already looked at that 2 years ago. We already looked at that this offseason. We do have some challenges coming up next year. We thought we had some challenges this year, but we were able to fill a lot of holes. That's what she said. So with Cousins' contract, it is a big-time cap number next season. The salary cap will be reverting back to the pace before the 2020 season, which will be nice. And Cousins, I don't think that he is going to be in the mood for a pay cut, just given the evidence of his entire history in the NFL so far. But Rob Brzezinski, the capologist, the genius, he has found ways to kick the can down the road. Now, adding void years to contracts like Anthony Barr, like Diesel Dalvin Tomlinson, etc., it alleviates the Vikings' cap liabilities for the immediate future, and it kicks it down the road. Yes, you still have to pay it, but with the cap going up and up and up, it's almost like a negative interest rate. So you are perfectly fine doing that. And I'm sure they'll find something with Kirk Cousins. Maybe it is an extension. Maybe they do tack on some void years and dissipate out that $45 million cap hit next year, but we'll see. On the Jeff Gladney situation, Gessling, go. Spielman spoke to reporters for the first time since the Vikings released Jeff Gladney following his indictment on felony family violence charge. Did the Vikings see anything concerning in Gladney's background before drafting him? Spielman, no, not whatsoever. And there has been some revisionist history. It's like, aren't you concerned about that with Gladney? But no, there really was not any red flags that would tip you off that something like this could happen. So it did come out of nowhere. And yes, it is embarrassing for the organization. You wasted a first-round pick, but ultimately there wasn't any warning signs that said, hey, he could potentially be allegedly capable of something like this. So it's just a bad situation all around. Speaking of bad situations, on the Mike Hughes trade, Gessling, go. Spielman said he thinks the Vikings have enough depth at corner to survive without Peterson. On Mike Hughes, who's now starting for the Chiefs, Spielman said, a lot of times you have to make decisions based on medical experts. I didn't anticipate the Gladney situation. And the Vikings did get a lot of stick for trading Mike Hughes for former first-round pick for essentially nothing, and then the Gladney situation went down. But Mike Hughes, respect, has played well through 6 games for the Chiefs. He's starting, he's doing well, he's returning punts, all that stuff. But with the multiple neck injuries and with the way that he played last year, I can see why the Vikings would have wanted to give up on him. And maybe Mike Hughes wanted a fresh start since he was going to be buried on the depth chart behind Breeland, behind Dantzler, behind Peterson, etc. So Yeah. It's whatever. I mean, people obviously would not be so upset if Hughes fell flat on his face and wasn't working out in Kansas City, but the fact that he is, talent was never an issue. Staying healthy was always the main issue with Mike Hughes, but whatever. Also on injuries, Courtney Cronin, ESPN, go. Rick Spielman held his annual bye week press conference with local writers this morning. Highlights, Vikings expect Patrick Peterson hamstring, placed on IR on Monday, to be back by the Green Bay game. That's as soon as he can be back at week 11. And Michael Pierce elbow to be back after Minnesota's week 7 bye. So that's great. It's going to be really good to have Michael Pierce back for the Cowboys game. Ezekiel Elliott is remembering how to run the ball. So it'd be nice to have Mount Michael Pierce back in the middle of the Vikings defense, even though Armand for Watson, James Lynch played well. And, I'm still a little bit creeped out by the Patrick Peterson situation. It just seems like coded language that people, Patrick Peterson, Mike Zimmer, it's a pretty serious injury, but Spielman always talks. Sometimes he's straight shooter. Well, here's the Spielman deflects and throws people off the scent so often that when he tells the truth, you don't believe him. So I want to believe Rick Spielman when he says that Patrick Peterson will be back as soon as possible, week 11 against the Packers. So, yeah. And then also on his future, Courtney Cronin, ESPN, go. Spielman, who has 2 years remaining on his current contract after the season, says he does not think about his job security. I'm not going to talk anything about any of the conversations with the Wilf family. That's between me and the Wilfs, but no, I have no concerns. And I do think that Spielman does have a lot of job security, and I think that the years left on his deal, I think that's pretty irrelevant. I do think that he, to a degree, has a contract for life. Asterisk, where you look at his actions in previous years, going after big-time free agents, trying to really swing in the draft. Those are actions of a guy who needs to make something happen. But you look at this draft, you look at this year's draft, it's drafting for the future. So this tells me that this is a guy who's very secure in his job. And I think if things don't work out with Zimmer, which if they had lost to the Lions or lost to the Panthers, maybe it wouldn't have. I think that Spielman would be around to pick his third new head coach, which is unprecedented for a general manager. But that's our thoughts on Spielman's thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on our thoughts on Spielman's thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support that work? Venmo. Until next time, Skull, production value.